Hello, Mavens. We're delighted to have you join us as we decide on a new challenge winner. The Maven Taxi Challenge was a major departure from previous Maven challenges. Not only was the dataset enormous in comparison to what we've provided in the past, but we also included a scenario with specific data wrangling tasks and business relevant questions that added both depth and complexity. We realize we asked for a great deal from participants, and we want to thank everyone who pushed through and joined us in the Maven Taxi Challenge. Now, of the 60 plus submissions we received, after carefully combing through them and ensuring entry requirements were met, 6 made it to the finalist round. Let's hear what our Maven judges have to say about each one of these well-executed entries. We'll begin with an entry from frequent challenge entrant and finalist, Vina.
Yeah, so overall, I really like Vina's dashboard. I think she did a lot of things great, a couple of things to maybe improve on, but I think it's overall clearly laid out. Each section of the report, serves its own kind of unique purpose. I really like the KPIs in the top left here. They do a really great job of showing those most important metrics kind of front and center. One of the things that I really liked here, specifically with the KPIs, is the use of the color coding and then the week over week context here. So you can see, specifically for the trips, that it was down week over week by almost 2%. And then you've got the volume comparison there as well. So I think great use of kind of working in that additional context into those KPI cards there. Kind of moving to the right here, looking at the trips per week, we can see in the data set that those are, declining, year over year. Again, this is clearly visualized here as well. And then I really like the call outs for the COVID restrictions when they were implemented and then when they were lifted here. Kind of one piece of constructive feedback here is that we've got the forecast that drops below 0, which shouldn't really be the case here. That forecast should end at 0. But again, overall, it's a great way to kind of show that year over year trend and how the trip volume is declining as we go along. Looking at the table here, kind of with the heat map. Again, I think this is a pretty good way of showing kind of the busiest pickup times of each day and then day of week. And again, I think Vina does a good job here of using the conditional formatting to call out some of the busiest times a day and showing the number of trips, associated with those busiest times. Again, you can really clearly see, when the volume increases and decreases. And kind of last piece here, looking at the maps, showing the top pickup and drop off locations, and then clearly calling out the 4 different zones here. Again, I think this was very clear and a good way to visualize and kind of call out that insight. So overall, great job, Vina.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. Next, we have Juan.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about Juan. So I'll start with just the kind of infographic nature of this one. I'm a sucker for that. It's very easily shareable externally. A lot of the key insights are called out in each of the individual charts so that somebody who's not really familiar with this could just pick it up and read the findings. In terms of the individual charts, the top 3 on the left, we're looking at annual trends, and it's pretty easy to see that the different trends that are going on there, the volume going down each year and then really plummeting, that's very clear in that top chart. You can even see sort of similarities in the seasonality that you get every year because they're stacked like that. And then you see the differences in the average fares, which are actually going up over time, and the average numbers of passengers per week for an individual cab. So those 3 insights I thought were really interesting. I think the one thing, if you're just picking it up and you're reading it top left down, until you get to that third one, you might not know what those 3 lines represent. So I think maybe having a legend on there would have helped to put that legend higher up. But other than that, I wouldn't really criticize it too much. I think the heat maps were pretty cool. Especially really liked the heat map talking about the ratio of tips to fares. So like if you're a driver, that would be a very interesting heat map to me, understanding where I have big tippers, and maybe I would just try to hawk around there. So I thought that was really cool. And then basically brought up a lot of these key insights at the very bottom with a recommendation of here were some of the great places that you would want to target. So I think it was great. I thought this was a really strong entry.
All right, excellent review, John. Following that, we have finalist Gerard Duggan.
I can take Gerard. Again, just to echo what you said at the beginning, Frank, this was one of the hardest challenges we've done. And I think people struggled not because they don't know how to deal with large data sets, but because their computers couldn't deal with a data set of this size. I think a lot of people were struggling with the cleaning steps and loading everything into Power BI or Tableau. And one of the things that Gerard did, I don't know if any of you guys saw, he actually uploaded a YouTube video that he shared on LinkedIn where he went through the cleaning steps himself. And the best part about it is that he actually created a dummy data set for it that he worked on so he wouldn't like strain his machine. And what he did, which I thought was really clever, just add a record for every scenario that would have required cleaning. So if we were saying something like if the pickup and drop off dates are swapped, swap them. So he would add one row where the pickup was after the drop off so that he knew if he applied the step correctly. And just based on that dummy data set, at the end, he just copied the M code and applied it to the entire data set with the 26 plus million records. And that really made it easier. So I thought that was really clever. Plus, he did some tricks in there that I had actually never seen. And when I was doing kind of like the answer key Power BI dashboard of my own, I actually used some of his tips and tricks. So thanks, Gerard, for that. And one thing I did notice while I was looking at his cleaning steps was that he did miss one step. He didn't miss a step. He just misunderstood one of the cleaning steps. And I think that applied. Well, what I figure is that a lot of people may have missed that as well by the way that we phrased it, because the calculations at the end, I know Aaron and I, Aaron, you and I checked this, they were off by like a couple hundreds in like the average number of trips, which I think was mostly down to that. And what happened is that there was one step in the cleaning steps that mentioned excluding trips where the pickup or drop-offs were into unknown zones. And the way Gerard talked about it in the video was that he wanted to remove the null values from that. There really weren't any null values. It was hard to tell because of the size of the data set. But what you actually had to do is, if you looked at the taxi zone lookups, the last two, I think it was IDs 264 and 265, were actually unknown. So you actually had to filter those out instead of the nulls. But other than that, I think with what he shared with the community and his final dashboard altogether, I think it was a really great job. Number one, the layout, we're usually not ones that give props for like adding images and everything, but I think the way he made this look like you're actually in a taxi looking at the steering wheel and dashboard and out the mirror into like the taxis in the street is actually really clever, and it works really well because it's not distracting from anything else. And he's covering all the questions that we answered, right? Like average trips, fare, and distance for the week. And he did add the fiscal week. We're looking at week over week changes. He's adding a line chart for the pattern within the week. I'm not a huge fan of the forecast. I don't think it's necessary since we're just looking at this week and next week. If we wanted to look at next week, we can just filter for week 28 in this case instead of looking at this forecast. But the maps, the pickup bar charts, and the heat map, I think worked really well to answer the questions that we wanted. So great job, Gerard. And final thing, I do notice that this is filtered by fiscal year as well. I'm not sure if he did that because it made the calculations easier, at least for average weekly trips. I know Aaron and I, we had to work some like DAX into that. Again, maybe Gerard just decided to filter by it and he did have the calculations prepped. But I wish it was only filtered by the fiscal week. But other than that, I think great job and great help for everyone else as well to maybe try this challenge out, even though it's expired now.
Got it. Very thorough review, Indika. Thank you.
No problem.
All right. So next up, we have Ivan.
Yeah, I'll jump in here for Ivan. So overall, I love the layout, the flow, the color palette, and just like the design of Ivan's entry here. I think it's very easy to kind of understand and digest. From top to bottom, we talk a lot about this in a lot of our reviews, where you're starting off in a from the kind of higher overarching numbers, those KPIs, and then you're getting more granular as you work down the dashboard. And he does that really well here. So up top, we've got these main KPI numbers, for week 10, and which, are all accurate. We went through and QA'd all these dashboards. And I like the integration of the week drop down here where you can change the week granularity. I know we were talking a lot about week over week comparison here, but one of the things, a very small tweak here that could have been a cool addition was to add a select all feature to select all the weeks here, within that week drop down. But again, very small piece there. Also, I like the caveat that he added in for the number of trips KPI, where we really do need to take into consideration, what the forecasted or the expected trip amount was going to be for any kind of given week, in an upcoming time period, because the data is really skewed based on the number of trips that didn't happen or did happen during the COVID time period in the data set. So it's a really important consideration to mention and kind of call out there. Next, kind of the middle of the dashboard here, I think this is my favorite, my favorite piece of this entire dashboard is, how he sets up the trend for the trip volume year over year, where it's segmented out by year here. I think this is a great, visual, it's a visually intuitive way to understand, one, that trip volume is decreasing year over year, but breaking it into the year segments here really helps draw your attention to how to that decline, kind of year over year. Additionally, I really love the day, the time of day and day of week trend here using the column charts. I think visually this is a really impactful way to see, kind of that oscillation of trip volume throughout the days of the week for the selected week, and it's just visually it's very appealing when it's compared to a kind of a heat map that a lot of the other entrants used here. Again, very small critique here. One thing that would have been or potentially could have been kind of cool here is grouping Friday, Saturday, and Sunday together to kind of see the the end of week and the weekend days to see how those days compare, instead of having the Friday and Saturday on a different line than Sunday. So again, the map visual here, again, thought this was a good job of kind of highlighting or visualizing the most popular pickup and drop-off locations. Kind of thinking through using this dashboard as a dispatcher or as part of the team, this could be a very helpful way to help me understand where my cabs, should be located during some of the heaviest trip times. And then finally, the zone analysis. Here, I really like the use of the bar charts to compare some of the most popular zones for the pickup and drop-off times. Thought this was very easy to understand. Again, one small piece of feedback here is that I personally found the borough color coding a little bit challenging to understand at first glance. It logically it makes sense, but I think the groupings of boroughs, the zones within the boroughs could have been done potentially a little bit different here. But yeah, overall, this is a really awesome submission from Ivan.
All right, excellent, Aaron. Thank you for that review, and big fan of the multiples myself. Okay, so moving on to Jay. So Jay happens to be a Maven Bootcamp participant, and we've had the opportunity to see him excel, no pun intended. It's been rewarding to see him progress as the bootcamp moves along from a data novice to rockstar. This is his first entry to a Maven challenge and is, I think, a testament to his skill and determination to become an analyst. I like the layout Jay used. We have a slicer on the top right to select the week, followed by important KPIs. Then the bulk of the visualization follows. He's clearly taken feedback from the Maven team on the best use of dashboard real estate, and it clearly flows and shows, I think, from how easily it is to read the majority of the visuals and aspects and layout of the entry. If I were a dispatcher using this dashboard as a guide for my team, I'd have an easy time efficiently placing my resources where they're most needed. the use of the bar chart gives me an hourly breakdown of when we'll require the most of our fleet. The chart on the lower left that displays weekly trip count by day takes things further and allows me to see what day has the highest probability of being busy. As a side note, perhaps it would have been better to sort by day of the week, but overall this works just as fine. The COVID call out was clever and definitely something to take into consideration as someone in my position in this scenario. Overall, how practical and clean this dashboard is what sold me on it the most. Okay, and moving on to our last finalist, another Maven Challenge veteran, Zoe.
Yeah, I'll cover Zoe. So a lot of you probably recognize the name. Zoe is a repeat finalist. She's a previous challenge winner. And this entrant is just classic Zoe. I think I could probably pick this out as being her submission, even if I didn't see the name. Just beautiful design, great clean design, awesome layout, great use of color. One thing I love about just the design approach here is that every single chart, every single data point, every single element on the page is deliberate and it adds value. And at first, looking at this, I was almost surprised that she was answering every question in the challenge prompt because it was so simple. But as you drill in, she did. She nailed the data prep process. She answered all the questions. And one thing that I think Zoe actually did better than anyone is that she absolutely nailed the target audience here. So if I'm putting on my Mario Maven hat as the lead dispatcher, who this is really designed for, this is someone who is likely not very analytically inclined, who needs something that's simple and clear and able to quickly give me the insight that I need to do my job as a dispatcher. And I think this dashboard does a fantastic job of that. Even things as simple as like the week selector at the top, choosing that style of element as opposed to a drop down or radio button just makes it so clear. Okay, boom, we're in week 40, we're in week 43, click the button, everything's going to filter. She did a great job with the maps using those shape files, stuck with DataViz best practices, simple bar and column charts, the one data table in the lower left with a little bit more detail. But generally just the simplicity, the use of really clear and intuitive headers that are really communicating to a non-technical audience in a very obvious way. What will be the most popular pickup locations? What will be the most popular drop-off locations? Which days of the week are going to be busiest? It's just so crystal clear and so easy to follow. Overall, I really don't have anything to pick on with this report. I thought Zoe did a fantastic job as always.
Excellent review, Chris. Thank you for that. So now that the team has had an opportunity to review the finalist entries, we've come to a face-off between Zoe and Ivan. We'll allow the team one last view of both entries, and we'll be voting via emojis. A thumbs up for Zoe or a clap for Ivan. Moving on to one last review. Here is Ivan. Take it all in. And Zoe. Okay, so now that we have that review, let's move on to voting. Is everybody ready?
I think so.
Ready.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
Zoe by 1.
Oh, wow.
3-2. 3 thumbs up, 2 claps.
You flipped me, Chris.
Nice.
I convinced you.
Yeah.
Same here. That was really good review.
Those were 2 very, very great entries. I could have gone either way for sure.
Me too.
Absolutely. Let's give her a round of applause, guys. Great job, Zoe.
Congratulations again. It's our first multiple challenge winner ever.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's quite a feat.
Yeah.
That wraps up another challenge. Again, a huge thanks to everyone who participated in the Maven Taxi Challenge. Be sure to keep an eye on the Maven LinkedIn page and website blog, as we'll be announcing the last Maven Challenge of the year on Tuesday, November the 23rd. It's going to be a magical one, celebrating 20 years of everyone's favorite wizard. We hope to see you there.